Hello, my name is Zachary Fillingham, and I'm the lead analyst at Geopolitical Monitor. In this video, I'm going to be discussing a recent article we published on the website examining the Simandou iron mine in Guinea. This project is extremely geopolitically significant for China because it holds out the promise of reducing its reliance on Australian iron supply, which accounted for some 65% of China's iron imports in 2022. Simandou also stands out as one of the last greenfield sources of high-grade iron ore in the world, which is a critical input for reducing the carbon footprint of steel smelting. Yet realizing the potential of Simandou has not been easy, as the project has been stuck in limbo for nearly 3 decades owing to a combination of logistical challenges, volatility in iron markets, corruption, and litigation. The initiative finally gained new momentum in 2019 and is now expected to start producing iron sometime in 2025. Yet risk factors remain, namely iron demand in China, political stability in Guinea, and the Herculean task of building and maintaining the infrastructure that will be needed to bring this iron ore to global markets. I'm going to delve into some of these issues in the video, but for a more comprehensive look that includes citation information, I invite our subscribers to read the original article, which you'll find in a link in the video description. Okay, so let's start with the all-important question. What makes Simandou so geopolitically significant? Why should we even be talking about it? Here there are a few reasons. One, in developmental terms, Simandou is a massive endeavor, with Simfer, the joint venture between the Anglo-Australian Rio Tinto and the Chinese-owned Chalco, expected to invest some $11.6 billion, including shared infrastructure costs, into the project. This is enough to put it among the largest projects by expenditure in Africa. 2. Simandou can help China break its dependency on Australian iron ore, a dependency that was painfully evident to the Chinese state authorities from 2018 to 2023, when Beijing slapped trade barriers on a slew of Australian exports but carefully avoided targeting iron ore. The reason for their hesitation is simple. Iron is too important to China's steel and construction industries, and there is no easy replacement for Australian supply on the global market, dominated as it is by Australia and Brazil. At the time, this dependency served to blunt the severity of China's punitive measures against the Australian economy. However, looking ahead, the Chinese government is likely far more motivated by the contingency of trying to get ahead of a possible future supply cut by Australia amid a potential Taiwan war. And 3, the Simandou project advances a growing Chinese economic dependence on Guinea, which is already a primary contributor to China's aluminum industry, providing some 70% of China's bauxite supply. These are the kinds of economic core interests that are historically backed by military force projection, and this might lend some actual credence to the periodic rumors that China is seeking a military base along the Atlantic coast of Western Africa, with Bata in Equatorial Guinea a frequently cited possibility. Okay, I'm going to skirt around the detailed history of Simandou since all this is laid out in detail in the timeline in the article. But broadly speaking, the road to the project's breaking ground has been tumultuous to say the least. It stretches back all the way to 1997, when Rio Tinto was first awarded the rights to all 4 development blocks in the region. Over the course of the next 30 years, the rights to blocks 1 and 2 were arbitrarily stripped away by the Guinea government and awarded to a competitor, BSGR, in an allegedly corrupt fashion in 2008, before ultimately coming back into the Guinea government's possession in 2019 following a decades-long lawsuit. The rights were then awarded to the winning consortium Simandou, or WCS, a joint venture consisting of China and Singapore-based companies. As it stands now, Blocks 1 and 2 will be developed by WCS, which includes China's Weiqiao Aluminum, the second largest aluminum giant in China. Blocks 3 and 4 will be developed by Simfer, a joint venture between Rio Tinto and China's state-owned Aluminum Corporation of China, often known as Chinalco or Chalco, with smaller stakes being held by Baowu Steel, China Rail Construction Corporation, and China Harbor Engineering Company. Chalco is China's largest aluminum producer and the second largest globally by production. Critically, both WCS and Simfer have agreed to cooperate on co-developing the infrastructure needed to export Simandou's ore, overcoming a major hurdle that had long kept the project from going forward in the past. Thus, Simandou in 2024 combines the political will of China's national security calculus with the economic firepower of some of the world's largest mining companies. This all suggests that this latest post-2019 push will manage to actually break ground when so many previous attempts have failed. Yet that being said, there are still some significant risks to note looking ahead. One of these risks is the execution of the project's ambitious infrastructure plan. At an estimated $6.5 billion, the infrastructure bill is massive even with the combined financial firepower of WCS and Simfer. The partners will be building some 536 kilometers of rail line from Simandou to the Atlantic coast, along with a barge port and a vessel port around 60 kilometers south of Conakry. This will require the relocation of tens of thousands of people, with an early Rio Tinto report estimating some 280 square kilometers of resettlement, which is roughly the size of Malta. Guinea is no stranger to these kinds of resettlements, as villagers have often been displaced to make way for bauxite mines over the past decade. The process hasn't always gone smoothly or equitably either, with studies uncovering cases where villagers are pushed off their arable land and resettled into new plots with faulty housing, poor access to water, and unproductive land. Such experiences have fed into a wider sense of disillusionment over the extent to which the mining industry is positively contributing to Guinea's development, and these concerns are backed by the data. For example, according to statistics from the U.S. International Trade Administration, while Guinea's bauxite exports quadrupled between 2015 and 2020, their associated state revenues only grew by an approximate 48%. This leads into the second and arguably most significant risk factor, and that is the stability of Guinea's politics. The country has experienced a string of coups since 1984, the most recent of which occurring in 2021, which installed the current regime led by Mamadi Doumbouya, a former military officer and leader of the country's special forces. At present, there are no strong indications that Doumbouya intends to return the country to civilian rule, and so long as the junta remains in power, it will be forced to strike a delicate balance between maintaining its nationalist credentials at home and playing ball with the Simandou mining interests. And keep in mind that, taken together, these mining concerns hold massive leverage over Guinea's economy, as companies like Chalco are also key players in Guinea's bauxite industry. The key question will be how hard of a bargain the Doumbouya regime tries to strike with the miners. Thus far, it has maintained a hard line in word, but hasn't really followed through in deed, other than maintaining the line of previous administrations that Simandou ore must be shipped through Guinea rather than Liberia. Absent new efforts to create a more equitable distribution of the country's mining dividend, the junta might respond to growing political opposition simply with more repression. And if a conflict were ever to break out, Simandou's logistics would be highly exposed given the vast distances between mine and port. Finally, there's the matter of global iron markets, as Simandou requires a certain price floor for iron ore to remain economically feasible. There are supply-side factors that can tip the scales here, such as new supply coming online elsewhere in the world, notably Brazil and Australia, or supply disruptions from major weather or geopolitical events. For what it's worth, Fitch believes the market will remain slightly constrained over the next few years due to underinvestment across the industry, lending support to current price levels. But the real drama could unfold on the demand side, particularly with regard to China, which purchases around 75% of all seaborne iron supply. China's steel industry accounts for 55% of global production, and it has long fueled the country's infrastructure and real estate booms, both of which are now winding down. Yet China's steel output continues unimpeded. In fact, output rose in 2023. What bailed out China's steelmakers? One word: exports. China has been exporting huge amounts of steel, with steel exports growing 76% in just 3 years from 2020 to 2023. This widespread dumping of cheap steel is producing tariff blowback in China's export markets, notably the United States, and as China's steel is diverted away from the United States, we can expect more tariffs with potential ramifications for China's steel industry and consequently its iron demand as well. Okay, well, that about wraps up this video. Thank you kindly for listening, and it would be wonderful if you could like and subscribe so we could expand the channel and offer more content. The article on our website explores these issues in greater detail with citations, so feel free to click on the link in the description if you want a more in-depth look into the Simandou project.